Let's be honest, when it comes to isekai, there's an ongoing joke that they're all about guy gets transported to another world, gets super powered, gets harem, all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to something like In the Land of Leadale, it's kind of refreshing. A series that's about a female character that gets transported into another world. And it's not really looking for a harem, but really just to relax and enjoy life. It's something akin to something like I've been killing slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level. It's something similar to that. Something that's more in the realm of Iyashikei rather than it being about fantasy fulfillment. Whenever somebody asks about that world that you would love to be isekai to, it's typically not those other worlds because they're usually dangerous, whereas this one's a little more relaxed and probably a lot more enjoyable. Now, it's not to say that Land of Leadale is without its fears and without its dangers, but different take and a different mood than your typical isekais. So with that said, this is my review of In the Land of Leadale, a 12-episode series that aired in the winter 2022 anime season, so let's jump right into it. In the Land of Leadale, or Leadale no Daichi Nite, follows a girl named Kaina. And Kaina, after unfortunately getting into a severe accident, ends up on life support. And the only escape that she has while she's on life support to just enjoy life is to play a VR MMO game called Leadale. Unfortunately, one day after her life support shuts down due to a power outage, she finds herself waking up back into the world of Leadale, but only 200 years later. Now, she's not really quite sure why she's there. Obviously, some things are slightly different in this world itself. Again, 2 years has passed. And she finds herself kind of moving around, trying to find out exactly what may have transpired over the last 200 years. Are there other players there? Is she alone? Why is she there? Is there differences there? She quickly realizes there's these towers there that are kind of like caches for some of the biggest players. And she goes to each one of those to see if she can find out if possibly those players are still in the world. All the while along her journey, she's running into different NPCs that seem more lifelike now than they did before. There seems to be a difference in how she kind of views these NPCs as being more like people that she would actually care for rather than just random non-player characters. And there's also the issue that while she was playing the game, she kind of used this adoption system to create some children in the world. And now they've grown old and they've had their own children. Now she has grandchildren, all this kind of stuff that she has to deal with at the same time. And that really does get into the crux of what I enjoy so much about In the Land of Leadale. Because, yes, typically, the transport to another world, nothing new there. Being an overpowered main character, nothing new there. I think the biggest thing that kind of sets this one aside from most of the other isekais is really around that adoption system. And I think that's where a lot of my enjoyment of this series came from. It really plays heavily on this concept of Kaina essentially having children in this world and the kind of issues that bring up. This idea of her constantly having to scold her children. Her children aren't always the greatest, especially Scargo, who becomes, for some reason, the high priestess of this one area. She has a lot of issues with him and his very flamboyant self that often causes problems. Then there's the over-doting Mai, and then there's like the one child that seems to be the most respectful, which is Kartats, and he's like this dwarf guy that does a lot of crafting, and he seems like the only one that seems to garner any sort of respect. But again, that's where a lot of my enjoyment comes from, is it's surprisingly how interesting it is to have an isekai where it's both a female main character who she's kind of feisty. She has a very feisty attitude. She's not like your typical isekai main character who either is just craving for the harem or just craving over being overpowered, or they're just a ditherer character. No, Kaina is a very much so, I want to go do this, I'm going to do this. And if anybody gets in my way, I'm going to question why they're in my way. She has a very feisty attitude that I really did enjoy. I was very much so gravitated towards just seeing her goofy personality and how she reacts to different people. And again, how she kind of pushes back when there's a situation that's pushing against her. It's a very different take on your main character. And it was a character that I really enjoyed, which is very surprising knowing that Kaina herself, which has a very unique voice, looking into her, she's got her seiyuu hasn't really done too much in anime, and I really do hope we see more of her because I really did love her voice. Now, that's not to say the entire series was just grabbing me. I think my love and enjoyment around Kaina and her relationship with her adopted children was a lot of fun. Every now and then it tried to get a little more serious, but what I found is that because it seems like the writer doesn't really like to stick into really heavy subjects for very long, it really did have me questioning why they would bring up a lot of these subjects to begin with. They bring into the thought of, well, if these are NPCs that she now cares for, she no longer sees them as non-playable characters, but rather people of this world that she now lives in, what kind of effect that has on her mentally because she's seeing them harmed, again, doesn't really stick into it very long. The fears that she has of being alone in this world and there being no other player characters, and what was the point in even doing anything if she's alone anyways, again, doesn't stick on it for very long. It really does feel like this writer loves to bring up little subjects but then quickly go, meh, it doesn't really matter, let's move on kind of thing. It doesn't really seem like, despite them being very interesting takes on what Kaina's mentality is at this current moment, it doesn't seem like, maybe from Kaina's perspective, what the writer is doing with Kaina, doesn't really care. She doesn't really care that much. She's more focused on the here and now rather than what was, and not really dwelling on things, but rather looking to the future. Which again could be to the credit of the writer, but at the same time, it always felt like, okay, I guess we don't care. Okay, I guess we don't care. Moving on. Visually, the show is very middle ground. It never looked terrible. Don't get me wrong. It was always kind of just enough to make it to where things are moving on a regular basis. It wasn't a fantastic looking show, but at the same time, I think it did well enough. It did enough to keep the show moving, and I was never too bothered by it. But yeah, in the end, In the Land of Leadale was definitely a series that I enjoyed watching every week. It was a series that I think, again, took a different perspective on your typical isekai and going more towards a more Iyashikei type of style of show. Even though it does get a little bit loud and action-packed at points, it really felt like a very escapism type of isekai, not so much going for the realm of fantasy fulfillment, but rather just enjoying your time, enjoying those around you. And I think that's what it kind of, at its core, was trying to go for. This idea that Kaina had nothing before because she was bedridden and she was on life support, and now she has this new life and this new family that she can take care of. And just seeing that quirky nature that she has, and yes, very feisty nature that she has, and really kind of correcting people and their mistakes, was a lot of fun. I really did love, I think Kaina was really the core of this show. Like, her personality and her goofy nature, her very feisty nature, was something that set the series aside from really anything else I've really seen, especially when it comes to isekai. Now, yes, it had an episode here or there that felt very but overall, I did enjoy this series. I do hope this does get a second season. I know that early on, there was a rumor here and there that there was going to be a second core already announced for it, but I haven't seen anything on it, so I'm not holding my breath on it. But either way, I enjoyed it. Definitely look forward to more if they do bring some more out. With that said, that's my review of In the Land of Leadale. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below, comment. Let me know if you watched this series or if you're going to be checking it out. I'd definitely love to hear back from you guys. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be doing reviews of all the shows in the winter 2022 anime season, as well as going into the first impressions for the spring 2022 anime season. As always, if you want to support this channel, you can share this video, hit that like button. Also, there's a Patreon and a tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate everybody that does support us. There's also a link to our Discord if you want to jump in there and discuss anime with us. If you love anime, you want to talk about it, it's definitely the place to be. And y'all take care.